Elton in the movie had brown eyes like 70% of the time because he wouldn't wear brown eyes. So,
but then I discovered that there actually are black people in those movies, but they're evil. It's like they were regular human, but then when they became evil, they got dark skinned. And I'm like, really? That's even worse than I thought it was.
and that's why I'm like happy with all the new stuff they're adding. Not even necessarily to stuff they're adding in Screen Rings Power. Like they just have some black characters. They have a black elf. They have they have all the woman dwarf.
I feel like
Everything, which makes sense because it's literally in the plot.
I feel like everything that's like old and racist.
I'm okay with
just take it away from
Yeah.
old people. Like Lovecraft, take all of the voices and sucks.
Yeah.
Like, now we can ignore all of the weird racist stuff and just ignore the stuff. We don't care what he did.
Right.
He was a weird, neurotic racist. Like the reason why there's so many like aquatic aspects of the movies is because he was afraid of the ocean. He was afraid of the ocean.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
So lovely to see so many faces in the audience. My name is Molly Macaulay Brown. I'm an assistant professor of English and creative nonfiction here at ODU, and along with my co-director Kent Wascombe, I'm directing this year's 45th annual ODU Literary Festival. Yesterday was supposed to be our opening day, but courtesy of some title flooding, this is our initial event. It feels really special to be able to hold the festival in person this year when the theme is sustaining community, and also ensure that it is accessible to people all over via our live streaming service. So wherever you are joining us from, whether you are in body or streaming in across the internet, we are so glad to have you here. Before I introduce this afternoon's event and our readers and speakers, I just want to say a couple of thank yous. First to Colin Strong and Sarah Glazer and Arts at ODU, who did such a phenomenal job helping with the legwork of putting this event together, getting writers here from all over the country, getting materials ready, including some really beautiful journals that have our festival logo on them and are free to take on the table outside. So for those of you who are here in person, I hope you will pick one up on your way out. They're beautiful. I also want to say thank you to the Office of the President and the Office of the Dean for their support, financial and logistical, as we put this on. And I want to say thank you to Woody Robinson and the wonderful team here at the University Theater for making all of this tech happen. Our first event, and it's actually sort of wonderful to have this be the opening event of the festival, is our MFA Showcase. And so this is going to be an opportunity for you to hear from 4 current students in our graduate program in creative writing. They're going to read a little bit from their work, and then they're going to be in conversation answering some questions about life in the ODU MFA program, their work, their courses, what they've learned from their professors and one another, and what you might expect if you decide to apply to ODU's MFA program. I'm going to go ahead and introduce them all right now before I invite them out, and then you'll hear from each of them individually and we'll have a conversation. So, Emma Cooley is a 3rd-year nonfiction writer and the graduate program assistant for ODU's MFA in creative writing. Her work has appeared on Poets.org, in the Ben magazine, in Military Families magazine, and more. Tope Lorraine is a 3rd-year poetry writer whose work has been featured in the Shallow Shells Review and the Kenny Review. She also serves as a graduate assistant for the Virginia Poets Database, which is a literary and educational resource for Virginia poets created by the 20th Poet Laureate of Virginia, Professor Luisa A. Gloria, who is here with us in the audience today. Kate Lewis is a 2nd-year essayist in the creative nonfiction genre, whose work has been featured in the New York Times and the Washington Post. She serves as the liaison for ODU Writers in the Community, a nonprofit organization of the MFA program, which cultivates creativity and literacy in coastal Virginia. And last but not least, Serenity Marshall is a third-year MFA fiction candidate and the managing editor of Barely South Review. Her work has been published or is forthcoming in Quarterly West, Midnight and Indigo, and Literally Stories. Please welcome them to the stage. As I mentioned before, you're all going to hear a little bit from each of their work individually, and then we're going to be in conversation. So Emily, take us off.
Hi, everyone. Oops. Hello. Yes. I'm only used to Zoom microphones now. I'm going to read an excerpt from an essay that I'm currently working on for my thesis. Which is about the experiences of military spouses or military significant others. So this is called The Leaving. The leaving is in his blood. He inherited it the way he inherited his height and his pale, freckled skin. You see, my husband comes from a long line of men who leave their families for the sea. His father was a sailor for the Navy, his great-grandfather a merchant marine. And before that, generation after generation of Irish fishermen setting sail off the Donegal coast to harvest enough food for the season. My husband is also technically a sailor. In the Navy, everyone's a sailor. Even if they never set foot on a boat, even if they cook or run payroll or fly planes, everyone is a sailor. He comes and goes, sometimes for weeks or months at a time. Sometimes I know what he's doing, where he is, when he's coming home. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I can call, text, email, and sometimes there are no words for days. Writing it down like this attempt at rhythm and repetition, is my way of trying to make the leaving seem like something I can reel in whenever I want. In Ireland, my husband's ancestors went out to sea for months at a time. They sailed into the deep, churning waters off the Irish coast without the conveniences of modern technology to keep them connected to their families back on shore. But what I want to know is, what did the women do while the men were gone? What I discovered is that in the 30s and 40s, they started to knit beautiful sweaters, complexly patterned, tightly knitted wool sweaters. They coagulated thousands of stitches into cables of dyed wool, scribing secret texts and languages out of knots and braids that formed designs unique to each family. The art of Irish sweater making persisted through the generations because the sweaters served multiple purposes. Not only did the intricately knitted designs strengthen the wool into a type of armor against the cold and wind, but they also functioned as a kind of fisherman's dog tag, each sweater unique enough to identify the bodies of any fisherman who washed ashore. When you're a military spouse whose service member is away, people often tell you, I could never do that. You're made for this. And I used to wonder if this was true, if my ability to endure a few months of the leaving was in fact a matter of hardwiring or destiny or genetic predisposition. In a way, I suppose the leaving is in my blood too. I come from a line of Italian women who also took to the seas. But unlike the fishermen or the sailors, they didn't set sail to feed or protect their country. Rather, when the bombs came, my grandmother hid in a train tunnel. And when she found a steamship headed for America with room for her 6 siblings and herself, she led them onto the boat and left, never to return home. I don't know if I'm made for this life, but I do know that I don't mind the way the leaving gifts me more time to spend hours at my writing desk. I know that sometimes the leaving feels like falling apart, and sometimes it feels like falling in love. I know that when my grandmother left the only home she'd ever known, she was making something, laying a foundation of a new life. And that the sweaters the Irish wives made during the leaving still sit in the National Museum of Ireland and the MoMA outlasting them, outlasting us. Thank you.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
I'll be reading 4 poems today. The first one is called Becoming the Family's Archive. And it's about, well, you see what it's about. My father says I look like his sister, who looks like his mother, who I am named after. My father also says all the family's memories swell within the follicles of his sister's graying hair. He says she remembers things no one else does, like when Baba and Mama, my grandparents, moved them throughout Western Nigeria because they were pastors in the Apostolic Church. He says it with amazement, swirled in pride because they are the closest in age, 2 years apart, and because they spend hours on the phone reminiscing on this moment that none of their other 6 siblings remember. Omo Ijo Auntie Philly, my father will unfailingly say whenever he sees our pictures side by side, but the unusually wide space between my toes, his tongue hanging out at the weight of genetics. Wow, you remember that? His probing voice will say when I sing old Yinka Ayefele songs from when we will drive to our hometown, or the praise songs from when our church started in 2003. I smile as he marinates the extent of my mind, my memories. I'm on my way to becoming the family's next archive. My overcapacity Google Photos account will agree. The next poem is an excerpt from a nonfiction piece I wrote about being a pastor's child. When you are a pastor's child, you do not belong to yourself. You do not belong to your parents either. Hell, your parents better belong to themselves, because there is always someone, always something. There is always a church member calling suddenly at 3 a.m. because armed robbers are about to break into their home. You want to be mad at this person, but you know that they had a better chance calling their pastor than the Nigerian police because of your country's many incompetencies. There is always someone that has gone into labor and needs urgent prayers because they did not want themselves or their baby to die. Once again, you understand. With how traumatic giving birth is, you would want everyone on board to make sure you and your baby live. And they live, most times, except when they do not. Someone occasionally dies, in childbirth, in a car accident, from an illness, and sometimes just death. And there is an us to bear this burden with them. Death is horrible. And losing a member of your family, because the church is a family, is troubling. You do not leave the family alone to mourn by themselves. You show up with food, hugs, and prayers. Prayers for strength, prayers for ease, and the will to live through the hard times. And you carry them with you everywhere. Are there any J. Cole fans? This is a poem I wrote about J. Cole, who's one of my favorite rappers. It's called The First Time I Heard J. Cole, or I Grew Up with This MC from NC. I wish I weren't so shy, I wish I was a bit more fly. In this new song is the swing time of acceptance, woven into the clash of woodwind and percussions. Is the "it's okay now" of my mother's voice, her fingers incanting peace and drawing circles on my back, his voice rapping. I'm just watching from the side on the bench because my lack of confidence will let me fly, eased in my broken ears as I watch Lagos go by. From the back window seats of the BRT to Ikorodu, trays of fresh ugu and plum tomatoes whooshing by, my eyes misting as we pass my 12, and he writes me to a semblance of sanity. If you see my tears fall, just let me be. Move along, nothing to see. I never felt better. This last poem is about the first time that I saw snow. I moved from Nigeria here and I was very excited to see snow. So it's called There is Magic in. There is magic in this blanket of white, woven into grass and tar. 4 a.m., my Nigerian eyes scan this curtain tumbling through the horizontal lines of my blinds. A departure from the 82 degrees Fahrenheit sun, I know. I stare as angels shed in special dendrites and crystals, lights bouncing off heaven and everything in between. From forgotten snowmen with crooked noses to dripping from the bare branches of wax myrtles and cedars. There is only peace as the houses and cars bathe in white. I want to stay here forever. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Kate.
Hello.
Hello. I'm going to read a piece called Later that I wrote after a year in the program for our secret summer workshop. Later. Later, you will marvel at all the things you believed were important. The white milk instead of the chocolate, the crisp apples instead of the fries, the towels and the flip-flops by the pool. You will lay out those towels by the pool with precision, stretching their worn striped terry cloth across the stark metal frames of the deck chairs to keep them cool. The chairs will be scalding later, heated by the sun. Their searing plastic straps might become a small danger for your kids instead of a respite from the chaos of cannonballs and belly flops and splashing. You will place your leather flip-flops under the shade cast by the towels on the chairs, arranging each of them with care, accounting for the way the sun might move through the sky over the course of the day. You will congratulate yourself on these small acts, on your ability to spot these tiny seeds of future problems and create a plan to avoid their bloom. It has taken you 5 long years of motherhood to achieve this ability to plan ahead, to not be surprised by the fact that the children are hungry again, that they are tired again, that the constant care they need is something that might be anticipated and prepared for instead of targeted whack-a-mole style whenever a new need arises, as it always consistently does. Your young son, only 5 years old but already a committed follower of rules, will call out, "Mama." He will alert you that your toddler daughter's sunglasses, pink cat eyes with rhinestone edges that sparkle in the brilliance of the summer sun, have slipped beneath the water. You won't realize what he means is that they are still on her face, that she is beneath the water. You will say you will be there in a minute. You will reach for your daughter's floaty, the blue one emblazoned with a cheerful shark whose razored rows of teeth convey whimsy, the one she feels constricts her every movement, the one she hates to wear because she, this tiny girl for whom rules and limits and boundaries do not yet exist, she prefers to feel free. The one you hadn't yet clipped onto her because you'd only take a moment to set your belongings down, and you told them both they could only play upon the watery stairs, no further. Your son is the rule follower, you know where he'll be. You will finish the work you thought was important, and then you will turn. When you see her submerged, you will already be moving before you fully comprehend it. You will run to the edge of the pool and thrust your arm down to the deep bottom stair where she stands beneath the surface, her small face tilted toward the sky. You will haul her out of the water and back up to the air, and you'll watch her gulp great mouthfuls of it and never even cry once, even as you begin to. And your heart will break again when you realize later that she too had followed your rules, had kept her feet firmly on the stairs even as they'd become too deep. Exactly where you had allowed her to be, your back turned, your trust placed only in your foolish words to keep her safe. Later, it will be lunchtime. You will gather both your children into your arms and your lap and sit upon the towels and share crisp apples and greasy fries and as many chocolate milks and sticky sugared popsicles as they would like. And you will be thankful it is later and not after. Thank you.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Okay. I have a nightmare where like the mic is too low and it's just recurring. Hi, my name is Serenity. I am a fiction student, but I dabble in creative nonfiction. I'm reading from a creative nonfiction piece today called Save This Message Always. All right. My first real job was at Pathmark, a regional supermarket chain with locations throughout the tri-state area. I was a cashier at the Chinatown location in the pharmacy department, a coveted position. No homeless with their shopping carts full of collected recyclables, or people buying ramen noodles with their coupons and stacks of pennies. I was 22 years old and didn't need the daily reminders of poverty and struggle, the dregs of the city and the less fortunate interrupting the self-centeredness of my blooming adulthood. My life was school, work, and the New York streets. That period in our past, that distance has taught our present selves was damn near perfect. I was kissing men, I was kissing women, I was playing truth or dare with strangers on the West Village Pier, taking sips from bottles masked in brown paper bags. I was riding the D train to Coney Island, smoking weed with new friends while we lounged on the beach, past blunts and ciphers, the aspiring rappers amongst us freestyling. One day, my coworker begged me to switch shifts with her. I didn't want to work a later shift, but I didn't want to be a bitch either and prevent this woman who sometimes brought me pernil and empanadas from seeing her doctor. The date we switched shifts for was September 11, 2001. The definition of luck is success or failure brought on by chance. Fate is events beyond a person's control, determined by an external power. And on 9/11, luck meant everything. Garrett and Graff wrote for The Atlantic. These mundane choices, travel schedules, and breaks in routine that dictated whether someone lived or died on 9/11 belie the structure and order we try so hard to give our lives. My sister Kiana and I, we went to the roof. We could see the smoke, a plume a mile wide. There were people on roofs all over the city. We decided to walk to Delancey Street. We were less than a block from the Williamsburg Bridge, its abutments abruptly rising from the asphalt when we saw them. Hundreds of dust-covered people, some sans shoes, shuffling across the street, plodding across the bridge. Like the quietest zombie army, they filed past us, bloodied and slumped. They had walked from downtown, were walking into Brooklyn. Suddenly, the sound of a plane overhead. Most bystanders scattered, screaming, others immobilized like deer. Kiana and I ran under an awning. A woman was crouched next to us, muttering in Spanish. The survivors, that mass of gray bodies, didn't even flinch, just continued their echo of a death march across that bridge. The plane turned out to be a fighter jet, headed into a future we were just comprehending. My memories of the weeks after are covered in a sort of gauze, a masking that renders everything through a lens, softening the edges. Did we really bring food in Tupperware still warm to firehouses across the city? Did we really cry at the national anthem and nod at strangers and talk about the degrees of separation that always led back to someone in those towers in that area? Your cousin's best friend's mother was there for a job interview. Your roommate's girlfriend was a traitor. There were always stories, and we were all storytellers gathering to testify. I watched all 6 episodes of the National Geographic special on 9/11 in one sitting. 20 years have passed, but each year I make myself experience it. I was a witness. I am a witness. The least I can be is a witness, absorb the misery, relive the memories like medicine, bitter pills I must swallow, the stories of the survivors, the testament of the survived. During the first episode, there's a series of voicemails, maybe a dozen in total, from those who will perish. Messages left by people who understand that this will most likely be their last utterance. Stephen Roach leaves this message for his wife and children. Save this message your whole life. Save this message your whole life. Thank you.
Thank you all so much for this beautiful reading. Always love getting to hear your work. And that is, I think, a wonderful place to start. All of you are here with us in Norfolk because you are writers engaged in this program in your own creative projects. And I wonder if you might start by talking to us a little bit about your work or your thesis projects here at ODU.
I guess I have the mic. My thesis is a mixture of fiction and creative nonfiction. The working title right now is Some Stories from a Black Girl from the Bronx. And it really just chronicles a lot of my childhood. I lived in New York until 2016, so really a lot of that time period. And it's just stories that really explore some of my experiences, either through the fiction lens, these invented stories, or some of the creative nonfiction that I've been working on. And so, yeah.
My thesis is poetry and nonfiction. I'm a poetry major, but I took this class with Molly and I fell in love with nonfiction. And I'm working on a couple of pieces that explore being a pastor's child, as you heard from my reading, feminism and immigration, moving from Nigeria to the US and having to like restart my life. That's really what it is. So poetry and nonfiction that explores feminism, my experiences as someone who moved from Nigeria to America.
Ooh, I'm a second year, so my thesis is one big question mark. It will probably be I'm a nonfiction student, so it'll probably be some kind of essay collection. What that will look like, I do not know yet.
That's great. You don't have to know. This is one of the wonderful things. The program will help you figure it out.
I am a third year nonfiction student, and as I mentioned, my thesis revolves around stories of military significant others. It is going to be a collection of essays, and it is based on interviews that I've conducted with, I think at this point, 16 different military SOs, spouses, girlfriends, ex-girlfriends, widows, etc. And there is a little bit of me in there, but mostly it's about the people I admire.
Wonderful. In addition to being writers, studying in the program, each of you, as a part of your graduate assistantship, has a role with the program where you do work in one of our offices. And I mentioned this a little bit in your bios, and I wonder if you might talk a little bit about your assistantships and the variety of ways that students might work in and get funded through this program. You guys get to be in charge, man.
Yes, I am one of the graduate program assistants, which is an administrative position. It is part event coordination, like Lit Fest. I've been lucky to work with Molly and Kent to work on marketing and logistics and things like that. I also get to help plan our semester MFA readings, where our students get to read from the things that they're working on, which we like to host out in the community. I'm also the person who sends 1,000 emails about different scholarship and contest opportunities, manage social media, etc. So it's really fun for me.
What Emma is too humble to say is that really she's the reason the program runs.
This year I'm running the Writers and Community Program, which is a nonprofit arm of the MFA program, and what it is really up to us to decide. So I got together with all the students and kind of asked what they were passionate about, what they would like to teach in the community, where they would like to volunteer their time. And then I go out and pursue partnerships with different organizations. Work we've done, Serenity and I actually taught a class on the art of the short story at the Slover Library. The class is coming out next spring on poetry and journalism and writing for video games. One of the partnerships that we are trying to work out is to kick off a writers in residence program, hopefully with a local children's hospital. Maybe do some, I'm putting a little pressure on here for them to watch this. But one of the things we would all love to do is write the animal bios for the local animal shelter. So really, whatever we can conceive of to bring creativity and literacy and joy to the local community is what we are trying to do with that program.
My work is the Virginia Poets Database, which was the project of Professor Louisa Gloria, who is here. She was the poet laureate, she's the outgoing poet laureate of the state of Virginia. And we worked together to create a database of poets who are affiliated with the state of Virginia. So they don't have to live here anymore. If they were born here, if they lived here for an extended period of time, they should be part of the database. If you know anyone, make sure you tell them to submit. So Yeah, we're trying to put together and also involve a bit of social media, getting the word out that there's a database of poets who have lived or live in the state of Virginia and to connect.
I'm the managing editor of BSR, Bailey South Review. It was, I don't dream of labor, but this is a labor of love. I knew I wanted this role from when I was accepted into the program. I was a reader year one, I was the fiction editor year two, and now I'm the managing editor. It's the journal for the program, and we publish stories from all over. We accept fiction, nonfiction, and poetry. It's just such an amazing experience to go through reading people's work and really having that, deciding what do we want to represent us, what do we want to put forth in our magazine. It's a collective effort, of course, with the support and guidance of the faculty, but it's just a great place to be. I think it's the best job, and thank you to all the readers who are here, because we're going to have a great issue this year.
Thank you all. So you all just heard here in the audience and wherever you find yourself about some of the ways that graduate students here at ODU fund their graduate coursework and make their way through the program. In addition to these wonderful administrative assistants up here who have shown you a variety of the kinds of opportunities that are available to you. We also have students who are teaching composition in the college classroom. We have students who are tutoring in the writing center. One of our wonderful graduate students is working here in the University Theater, and another is working in the Barry Art Museum on campus. And so we have just a huge number of ways that students can again, not only help fund their educations here, but also get involved in what it means to make a working life as an artist, whether that means also being a teacher, also doing programming work, also thinking about community and event planning, all these kinds of things, developing the kinds of technological skills that come with maintaining a database. That's one of our goals, to give our students a whole variety of opportunities. Just hear a little about them. And maybe that is a good way to transition into my next question. I'm always tempted to ask, what's your favorite part of the program, or what's the best thing that happened to you while you're here? But then I remember that those are the sorts of questions that I hate when people ask them to me. And so instead, I want to frame it by saying, what's one thing that has been especially meaningful to you in the program, or you think is especially unique about our program that you would want folks in the community, folks thinking about applying, the people listening in to know about? You can go in reverse order, or you can pass the microphone around willy-nilly. It's up to all of you.
As someone who moved from another country, I think the community is the thing that stands out the most to me. Even while I was still in Nigeria, because I had to start my classes from Nigeria because of COVID, I had people texting me, offering me like a place to stay in their homes, invited me to their homes to meet their families, lots of food, just so nice and so helpful. And I'm really grateful for that, because moving is very lonely and it's a very hard thing, but the people here are so full of love and so full of kindness, and it's something that I will carry in my heart wherever I go, because the program is a wonderful, wonderful, kind one.
Yeah, that's applause for kindness always in this climate. Thank you, Sophie.
I will echo that. I came off of probably 5 years of caring for 2 kids pretty much entirely by myself. I had a husband that's deployed almost constantly during that time. And so for me to come into a program where everybody is so kind, and to have the opportunity to think deeply about art and have conversations about what we like to read and what we want to do in our careers, it has been transformative, I think. And I don't think that'd be possible without how kind and close-knit we all got together over the summer several times to keep each other writing, keep each other working, and I don't think that often happens.
Yes, I don't think we can understate how supportive this community is. I also think that what makes this program particularly supportive and advantageous is that it seeks to expand that community beyond what constantly is available here at ODU. And what I mean by that is that in addition to our full-time faculty, this program brings in each semester a visiting professor and a writer in residence. And those are folks who usually have focuses, you know, for instance, it might be a young adult writer, or it might be someone who focuses on, gosh, now of course my brain is going blank, but the point is you get access to folks and their different writing niches, right? And you work one-on-one with them. And these are people who, like, I don't know how much that costs in the real world, but I could never afford to have my workshops by a best-selling author. So getting that time over lunch for an hour to talk one-on-one with these writers has been incredibly valuable to me. And hopefully those are connections that you have for the rest of your writing career, and you can turn to them again and again, and hopefully you bump into them at conferences and things like that. So that's something I found really helpful and I appreciate about the program.
We're going to take these folks to dinner with some novelists tonight. So
yes, so there we go. That's Exhibit A.
So in addition, as you all pointed out, to learning from your permanent faculty, to learning from the visiting writers who come in, the speakers who might come in to speak to a class or as part of our speaker series, you have all drawn attention to the fact that one of the most powerful forces here is one another, right? Your peers and your colleagues. And I wonder, I'm sure you've learned millions of brilliant things from your professors over the course of your time here, but I wonder what the most useful thing you've learned, whether it's something you've been told directly, a piece of advice you've been given directly, or something you've just picked up by paying attention. What the most useful thing you've learned from a peer or a classmate or a colleague has been?
I'm going to give this to you so I can narrow that down to the brain.
Ready to go. The thing that has helped me far and away the most is to learn to pay closer attention to when in a piece you start to feel something and what their words are making you feel, and just to be more aware of noticing when that starts to happen and marking it down, and then it's something you can take and apply to your own work. I came from a background where I was writing like dry corporate copy and more straight news kind of pieces, and finding that emotional connection was one of the main craft tools that I really wanted to learn while I was in the program. And really that art of paying attention and the art of noticing has really been very, very helpful to me in my own work, and I think it came out of one of the early workshops that I did.
I think for me it's finding the balance. I can be very indecisive, and when you go into a workshop, people give you like different perspectives on the work, and it can get overwhelming. But time and time again, through every workshop, through poetry and non-fiction workshops, the professors always say, at the end, it's your work, and you know what matters to you the most. You know the story you're trying to tell, and people have different perspectives, but let your voice shine through the piece that you're trying to write. Let your own belief about the story shine through, and I think that that's something that's very important. I have to constantly remind myself about it, about every story I write, that this is something that I know best, and I can tell it in the best way. Good feedback is very important, actually, like you take notes from everybody, but at the end, find the balance, know what is important to your story, and implement that.
I think that for me, it's the only way through is forward. You have to sit down, you have to do the work, and it's the only way the work's going to get done is to do it. And it really speaks, I think, to what these ladies said about community and the support that's created in this program, and the support that you get from the faculty here, where an environment is created where you feel like you have the ability to just do the work and to get it done. And that's just been, the amount of work I've produced in this program is just, it's astronomical, and it's a direct result of this idea of just getting it done, and that there are people here ready to support you and help you make it the best that you can.
think this is connected to everything these three women have said, but I have learned what it looks like to be vulnerable on the page. That is something like Kate. I came from a background of drier writing, where you don't put yourself on the page at all. And it was immediately apparent to me that the work that my colleagues were producing and sharing was impactful for many reasons, but particularly because of how much they were willing to share of themselves. And that's something that I strive to do every day and continue to look to them for guidance on.
I love hearing what all of you take away from outside of the classroom space or from between the lines. I feel like as a professor, I feel like I'm sometimes stumbling onto the edges of that community and the conversations that you guys are having. And it's just wonderful to hear you all talk about it. I think you're right that the community of this program is particularly wonderful in its kindness, in its immense diversity. People, as you're pointing out, coming from all kinds of backgrounds, all kinds of experiences, and in its total embrace of all the different paths that can bring you here. And in that vein, I wonder if you all might sort of think back, as we wish we can, to who you were as you were beginning this program, or who you were as you were applying to MFA programs or thinking about applying to MFA programs. And I wonder if there's either one thing that you wish specifically that your past self had known, or one piece of advice that you would give to somebody now embarking on this program or thinking about applying to MFA programs.
Live in Norfolk. But seriously, I think that what I underestimated is how much of your life you will want your MFA to be. You will want to have access to your colleagues all the time. You will want to be writing with them outside of class, be talking about the things you're learning over coffee and drinks. And so, that's not to say you have to live in Norfolk, but I'm saying make room in your life, if you can, for writing and brainstorming together, and also activities with each other that have nothing to do with writing. And wherever you choose to move for your MFA, just invest yourself as much as possible in that landscape, because that's where your ideas are going to come from. It's experiencing that new place, or maybe experiencing an already familiar place in a new way.
Okay. I think I'm 1 year into my program, but in a few months I'll be halfway through the program. So it does go by fast, which I was very conscious of coming into the program. But I think the best advice that I got came from Molly, which was just calm down. Just take the time, settle in, like really just enjoy the time that you're here, learn everything you can, but like stay calm about it and like soak in the art more than thinking about this time in a only production kind of way, which is the way that I came into the program. So that has been very useful for me to try to think of it that way and retrain my brain to not worry so much about how much I'm publishing, how much I'm generating, but think of it more about what type of art do I want to put into the world, what do I want to say, and how do I want to say it, and to take that time and to really calm down has been hugely helpful for me.
Come to ODU so I can tell you to calm down.
It's special hearing it from all you. I absolutely agree with Emma and Kate, but for me, I think that the one thing that sticks out is do the work, like Serenity had said, but doing the vulnerable work. I think that the poetry I applied to the program with, looking back, was very stiff. It wasn't as honest as it should have been. And now that I'm writing work that I am really happy about, I'm very joyful to write and read. I'm grateful for all the professors and all the people that I met during this program, because now I am willing to do that hard work of being honest on the page, of talking about the hard things, of just even when I'm struggling on the page to say, I'm not sure how to talk about this thing, but I will do something for you to read. And that's the most, like, I think that's the most important thing in writing. Are you writing the hard things, and are you being vulnerable as you can be?
So I live in Portsmouth. I pay a toll going back and forth. So I know when Emma said live in Norfolk, it was metaphorical. No, I mean literally don't live in Portsmouth. But I think I did a ton of research when I decided that I wanted to get my MFA. And if you'd asked me before the program, I would have said community. Absolutely, that's what I wanted. That's why I want to be in an MFA program. But I don't think I even understood what that meant. You'll just see that theme constantly with our program of what it meant to truly be in community. I thought I was going to meet some people that like to read and write, and I make some friends, but I've made and am making lifelong friends. And we had what we called our secret summer workshops, which we actually called like the Fight Club workshops. Wow, don't even ask. But and just those sorts of things where we want to spend time with each other and in each other's company, whether it's just going to Busch Gardens and having fun on roller coasters, or it's literally sitting down and using our own time outside of the classroom to really get into each other's work. And so it's just been amazing.
I can sit here and ask these beautiful people questions for an endless amount of time, and will continue to do so. But I wonder if there's anyone in the audience who would like to ask a question. Oh, look at the lights coming up so beautifully so I can see people's faces. I wonder if there's anyone in the audience who would like to ask a question of our students before I ask someone. You can be loud, and then I'm going to repeat your question so that other folks can hear it, and our live streamers can know what it is.
So this question is for Emma, the lady in the maroon jacket. When you were starting your thesis, how did you make that initial contact with significant others? What like channels did you use, or how did you do that?
Yeah, so we've just had an initial question for Emma, whose thesis, as she mentioned, had started by conducting interviews, and one of the things you asked is how did you make that initial contact with those military spouses and significant others?
Yeah, that was, oh, right. I thought I would just be loud too. Yeah, that was my first question to Molly. I was like, logistically, how do I make this happen? Well, first of all, I'll caveat this by saying the Military Spouse Network is this miraculous thing where everyone knows someone who knows someone who knows someone. And so I wanted to capitalize on that. So I created a form on my website, and it explained my project. It explained, I'm not writing a military expose. I would really love to be able to learn more about your experience and pass that on to the next generation of military SOs. And they were able to submit their info, and I could contact them. And then I basically used the power of social media and Kate, and sent it out to everyone I could think of, and emailed everyone saying, please, if you know someone who's interested in this, their identity will not be revealed. This is all going to be de-identified. It's for my graduate thesis. I promise I'm actually going to graduate school. And I was telling Molly, I think I'll be lucky if I get 3 or 4 people. And then by like midnight that night, I was panicking because I had no idea how I was going to interview all these people in the short amount of time that I had. And over the summer, I did, I think, 26 interviews. So that's logistically how it happened. I was really scared, and it ended up being really straightforward.
And you were really thoughtful about the questions that you put together, and you talked a lot about the language that you were going to use in your initial call. And this is exactly why you make friends in the program. You have an and this is exactly why you have an advisor. So that when you have these big questions, which is, I have an idea and I have no idea how to actualize it, that's one of the things that a program like this is here to help you do.
Yeah, I'll also say I picked the brain of the amazing Ramika Bingham-Risher, who did something similar for her memoir. So I felt like I had someone who had already successfully navigated these waters, and I could turn to her for logistical advice as well.
Any more audience questions? Yeah.
I'm sorry if this is the wrong place to ask this question, but I am writing an event review of this showcase. After the initial questions, would any of you be willing to sit down for a one-on-one interview?
Oh my goodness, you'll have to talk to our agent. I think it's probably Molly. That's a question for you.
We're going to be at the end. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
We can make that happen.
All right.
Thank you for being here.
Anybody else before I ask more questions? Yeah.
Hey guys, it's Ramita.
I love you.
I love you guys too. You guys were fantastic. And so I'm just wondering, you talked a lot, Molly kind of set us up really well to think about, the mindset when you're coming into the program. But you all are also, it's about the jumps that halfway through. Most of the folks are leaning, toward being done with the program. So I'd love to know some of your, just short term, like let's not plan out our whole lives. I don't want anybody to have complications up here. But short term goals for your writing and for yourselves after the program. How do you plan to keep this momentum going?
I hope to continue the community, which I don't see, we're just too strong for it to just, it's not like high school, it's like, all right. These are truly lifelong friends on that sense, socially. But I think that professionally, I'm looking to just continue publishing, putting my work out in the world, looking at, maybe some fellowships, fingers crossed. Maybe even, I live here, this is my adopted hometown, so possibly maybe teaching in some capacity, just really being as involved in the literary scene in the Hampton Roads area as I can be while I'm here.
Serenity is too humble to tell you that a piece of fiction of hers just won the AWP Intro Award. These writers are already in the midst of their professional lives as writers, even as they are still studying and still making plans for the future.
That's very nice.
Honestly, I think the first thing that comes to mind is what else would you do? I don't know how to do anything as well as I know how to write, and I think that I want to continue to do that. I set all these reminders of the ideas I have, and I record them, and I try to write them every day or write every once in a while. I also, for a career, I also consider I love to write, and I wanted to find something that was a sweet spot between making money well in the beginning and writing, and I found this field called user experience writing, and I did a summer internship, and I hope to continue that as a remote role so I can stay in the community, and when I'm not writing, people are like, why are you not writing? And they see me in the store or somewhere and make sure that I'm writing. So I want to be able to stay in the area, continue to grow this community that I've found, and just work and be joyful by writing.
Tope wants community-based guilt.
I started this program thinking that an MFA would allow me to charge freelance clients more and that I would be furthering my professional career as a content and copywriter. That might still be the case, but I think this program has seriously moved me in a different direction. And I have decided I no longer want to be the person writing copy for people's websites. I really wanted to dedicate more of my time to long form creative nonfiction. That probably, honestly, let's be real, means a day job for the rest of my life. But that also looks like hopefully taking my thesis and expanding it and interviewing more folks, and finding a way for it to have a life of its own out in the world. But also in the short term, I think really in your third year, you start looking at fellowships and retreats even. I've probably got 1,000 really cool writing retreats bookmarked on my laptop, and I'm just waiting for for May, really, when you have time to go off for 2 weeks into the woods and not contact anyone. So I think that's I basically booked my whole summer in my head, and hopefully someone will want me to actually show up to their retreat. So.
Imagine just wants to go to it without emailing me.
Yeah.
All right. You gonna do it?
I don't have an answer.
I'm still figuring out.
Do you have goals for your third year of the program?
Yes, my goals for the third year of the program are to figure out my thesis. To write, also to write it.
Very big goals.
I came into the program having already had a career behind me. I'd worked in PR for quite a long time. So I'm not eager to go back to that. So I kind of came in like open-minded. I knew I wanted to come back to the craft of writing, and I wanted to be open to whatever doors it might open. I knew that maybe it being a terminal degree, it would potentially, teaching would be a possibility that it hadn't been before. But I think my goal is to be a working writer in some capacity, along with everybody else. What that'll look like, I don't quite know yet, but that is my goal coming out of the program.
Yeah.
I hope you'll bear with me for a short period of time. When you said, when I started the program, all of a sudden I thought, well, maybe I do want to say something. My name is Phil Razor, and 46 years ago, I started the program at ODU. And I was thinking, as you all were talking, as I was going back and thinking of 46 years, when I was at a cocktail party, and Dee Snodgrass, who was the Pulitzer Prize winning poet, who we had brought here as a visiting writer, and I were having a drink, and I asked Dee, I said, Dee, would you help me put together a literary festival? And out of that moment came 46 years, you all the way back to the beginning. So you can imagine how I've been experiencing this whole afternoon. What I want to say is probably this. Every year there has been a brochure. And I have 46 years of brochures. Is there one, Molly, from this year?
Indeed. It's on the table up front here.
And I'm going to get it because if you had access to 46 years of the poets and fiction writers and critics and essayists who've been here, you would look at the full spectrum of writers in America, from National Book Award winners, Pulitzer Prize winners, Nobel Prize winners. Derek Walcott was here one year. It would be a marvelous experience for you to at least go online and look at the writers who have been here, because that's the community that you and all of you who are in the MFA program are a part of. It's not just this year, it's not just now, but you will be and are in the minds and hearts of so many people who are contributing and have contributing to this event. So I hope you'll think of it as, well, I'm in the MFA program. Yes, I'm a part of the Literary Festival, but I'm also a part of the enterprise in America of contributing to the writing community. Don't lose sight of that. You're not just your own individual self now. You're not just a part of ODU's MFA program and festival. You are part of America's writing community. And as I look, for example, at one of my former students who just was a few years ago here, Natalie Diaz, who I'm sure all of you know who she is. But she was here, just like you, doing the same thing, and has grown and developed. And of course, I'm name dropping only for this reason, that your names could very well be a part not of just of our history, but of America's history as well. So take yourself seriously. Don't just pass it by. Don't let the other people who dismiss you as just a writer. Take yourself seriously and do not fail yourself. Not us, not the rest of the world. But what you're learning here right now is to open yourself to all of yourself, to write everything you can in the best way you can. Don't fail yourself, and that would be my contribution to this festival.
To close our first event of this Sustaining Community Literary Festival. I fully expect that all of you will have names who become a part of the larger fabric, not only of the history of this program, but of literary history, which reminds me, I need to make all of you sign something before we leave. I'm going to let our Writers and Community Coordinator, Kate Lewis, close us out with a final announcement. But before that, I want to encourage all of you to join us right back here at 7 p.m. For a reading with David Wright Faladay. It will also be available to all of you people who are streaming at wherever it is you are streaming from now. And so we're looking forward to seeing many of you. And we've got a final community announcement before we close down.
Yes, so even though we are all studying writing, we are very conscious of making opportunities for the people coming up behind us. So one of the things Writers and Community just hosted was a writing contest for ODU's undergraduate students. It's going to be coming up in 2 weekends. We have Mars Fest hosted at the Berry Art Museum, where they're going to bring in a large-scale installation of Mars, and writers from the program who are here tonight are going to be reading some of their works about Mars, under Mars. And we invited an undergraduate student to join us, and we held a contest, and we had some amazing work entered. And the winner of the contest will be reading their work at Mars Fest next weekend. 2 weekends from now is Marjorie Sonice. So, undergraduate student, I think from the College of Electrical Engineering. We got entries from all over the place.
That's right, interdisciplinary learning. Love to hear that. All right, we will hope to see many of you back here at 7 p.m. for David Wright Faladay. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you to all of you.
Engineering.